On September 10, 2025, a packed auditorium in Utah witnessed a shocking moment. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, was speaking on stage when a gunshot rang out. Within minutes, America was watching what would soon be called a political assassination. This wasn't just a random act of violence, but a moment that could reshape political discourse in the U.S. It was just after noon when hundreds of students gathered inside the Sorensen Student Center at Utah Valley University. The air was buzzing with excitement, curiosity, and tension. They had come to see one of America's most controversial figures, Charlie Kirk. The banners outside read, "Prove me wrong." A live debate with Charlie Kirk. Students lined the halls. Some clutched notebooks filled with questions. Others held their phones, ready to record every second. For Charlie Kirk, this was routine. He had faced hostile crowds before. He thrived on it. The debates, the confrontations, the spotlight, it was all part of his brand. At exactly 12:10 p.m., he stepped onto the stage, calm, confident, smiling as the audience erupted in a mix of cheers and jeers. He adjusted his microphone, leaned forward, and welcomed the crowd. For 20 minutes, it was business as usual. Students challenged him on politics, economics, culture. Kirk fired back with quick responses, sharp comebacks, the kind of exchanges that made him famous online. But then, everything changed. A sudden crack echoed through the auditorium. At first, some thought it was a technical glitch, a mic popping, a balloon bursting, but within a heartbeat, the truth became undeniable. Charlie Kirk staggered. His hand shot to his neck. Blood began to spread across his shirt. He collapsed. The room froze in horror. Then chaos erupted. Students screamed. Some ducked under chairs. Others bolted for the exits, shoving their way through the panicked crowd. Cell phones shook violently as live streams captured the confusion, until they suddenly went dark. On stage, aides rushed to Kirk, pressing desperately against his wound. Voices shouted for help. Sirens wailed in the distance. Within minutes, paramedics pushed through the chaos, loading him onto a stretcher, racing him to a waiting ambulance. At 1 p.m., less than an hour after he took the stage, doctors pronounced him dead. Charlie Kirk, activist, commentator, leader of a political movement, was gone. The news spread instantly. Phones buzzed across the country. Breaking alerts lit up television screens. Charlie Kirk shot at Utah College event. Charlie Kirk dead at 31. America was in shock. Supporters mourned. Critics were stunned. And everyone asked the same questions. Who pulled the trigger? Why here? Why now? And perhaps most chilling of all, what does this mean for the future of American politics? This is the story of the shooting of Charlie Kirk. A story of power, controversy, and a nation divided. Charlie Kirk was not born into politics. He didn't come from a powerful family. He wasn't a senator's son or a governor's heir. He was born on October 14, 1993, in the suburbs of Chicago, a middle-class kid with middle-class dreams. His father was an architect, his mother a stay-at-home mom. By all accounts, a normal upbringing. But Charlie was never ordinary. From a young age, he had a knack for challenging authority. Teachers recall him asking bold, uncomfortable questions. Classmates say he thrived on debate, even if it made him unpopular. At just 18 years old, fresh out of high school, Charlie founded an organization that would change his life and, some argue, change the course of American politics. Turning Point USA. It started small, a handful of volunteers, a simple mission. But the idea was explosive. Kirk wanted to create a movement for conservative students on college campuses. A movement that would push back against what he saw as liberal dominance in American education. Within a few years, Turning Point USA exploded into a national powerhouse. Millions of dollars in donations, dozens of conferences, thousands of student chapters across the country. Charlie Kirk became its face. Sharp suit, slick hair, confident grin. He wasn't just another activist, he was a brand. He wrote books, appeared on Fox News, and eventually launched his own daily talk show, The Charlie Kirk Show. His message was clear. America was under attack from the left, and it was time for conservatives to fight back. To his followers, Kirk was a hero, a young man who had the courage to say what others wouldn't, a warrior for free speech, a defender of the Constitution. But to his critics, he was something else entirely. Provocateur, a flamethrower, a dangerous figure who thrived on division. He drew headlines not just for his ideas, but for his confrontations. At college debates, he clashed with students on issues like immigration, abortion, and gender identity. Online, his comments went viral, loved by some, loathed by others. His ties to Donald Trump only cemented his status. Kirk spoke at Trump rallies, defended him on TV, and embraced the Make America Great Again movement. For many conservatives, he was the future of the movement. For progressives, he was a symbol of everything they opposed. By the time he turned 30, Charlie Kirk wasn't just a commentator. He was a force, and that made him a target. The more famous he became, the more enemies he made. Online threats became routine. Critics protested his events. Security at his appearances grew tighter. And yet, Charlie Kirk kept showing up. He thrived on confrontation. It was his fuel, which makes what happened in Utah all the more chilling. Because if Kirk was used to controversy, if he was used to threats, then how, on September 10th, 2025, did someone get close enough to end his life with a single bullet? The answer begins with the day of the shooting.
That's a lot of people, Utah, I'll tell you what. We're going to be here for a couple hours. Get comfortable. Bring the best libs that Utah has to offer.
That morning, Utah Valley University bustled with anticipation. Flyers for the event were taped to classroom doors and pinned to bulletin boards across campus. Prove me wrong. A live debate with Charlie Kirk. Students debated in hallways long before the event even started. Some were excited, eager to defend their beliefs. Others were skeptical, ready to challenge the man they viewed as an agitator. By noon, the Sorensen Student Center was packed. Hundreds of young people crowded into the auditorium. The air was thick with energy, a mix of excitement, tension, and the kind of nerves that only come before confrontation. At exactly 12:10 p.m., Charlie Kirk appeared. He wore a tailored suit. His trademark confident smile stretched across his face. He shook hands with organizers, waved to the crowd, and walked to the podium. The applause was mixed. Cheers from supporters, boos from critics. But Kirk loved that balance. He thrived in rooms where the audience wasn't just listening, they were reacting. For the next 20 minutes, the event unfolded as expected. Students lined up behind microphones, ready to debate him on immigration, free speech, and foreign policy. Kirk leaned into the exchanges. His voice was steady, his replies sharp, his humor biting. Every comeback earned reactions, laughter from some, groans from others. It was exactly the kind of event he had built his career on. And then, it wasn't. At 12:31 p.m., just as Kirk was finishing an answer, a sound split the air. A single crack. First, confusion. A few heads turned toward the back of the room. Some thought it was a microphone glitch or a chair snapping against the floor. But then came the gasps. On stage, Charlie Kirk staggered. His right hand shot up to his neck. His eyes widened, filled with shock, as he collapsed to the floor. Panic swept through the auditorium. Students screamed. Some ducked under chairs. Others scrambled toward the exits, tripping over backpacks and each other. The sound of the gunshot seemed to echo endlessly, replaying in the minds of those present. On stage, aides and staff rushed to Kirk. They pressed coats and towels against his neck, their hands shaking, their voices frantic. "Stay with us, Charlie. Stay with us." Blood pooled on the wooden stage floor, dark and spreading fast. Eyewitnesses recall the chaos vividly. One student said, "I thought it was part of the show at first. Then I saw the blood. That's when I realized this was real, and that we might all be in danger." Campus security stormed the auditorium. Students were herded out in waves, some sobbing, others frozen in shock. The building echoed with alarms and panicked footsteps. Outside, the first police cars arrived, followed quickly by ambulances. Red and blue lights flashed across campus lawns. Inside, paramedics worked frantically. They lifted Kirk onto a stretcher, his face pale, his shirt drenched. The crowd outside watched in stunned silence as he was rushed into an ambulance and whisked away. At 1:02 p.m., less than an hour after he stepped onto the stage, doctors at a nearby hospital pronounced him dead. News spread like wildfire. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all flooded with shaky cell phone footage from inside the auditorium. Headlines across networks flashed the same breaking words. Charlie Kirk shot at Utah Valley University. Charlie Kirk dead at 31. Within minutes, the nation knew. In living rooms, offices, and coffee shops across America, people stared at their screens in disbelief. Some broke down in tears. Others sat in stunned silence. And many, whether they loved him or hated him, asked the same haunting question. How could this happen? And perhaps more importantly, why? The shot had been fired. Kirk was gone. But one question remained. Where was the shooter? Inside the chaos of the auditorium, witnesses offered conflicting stories. Some swore they saw a man in a dark hoodie slip out a side door seconds after the gunshot. Others claimed the shooter was seated in the back rows. A few thought there had been more than one attacker. Police swarmed the campus. Helicopters circled overhead. Roads leading into and out of Utah Valley University were sealed. Students were locked down in dorms and classrooms. By 2 p.m., SWAT teams had cleared the auditorium, searching for shell casings, fingerprints, anything that might reveal the gunman's identity. And then came the break. Security camera footage showed a figure moving quickly through a side hallway just minutes after the shooting. The person was tall, dressed in black, with a baseball cap pulled low. No face visible, but what they carried, a backpack weighed down, bulky, raised alarms. The search widened. Police combed neighborhoods near the university. Checkpoints inspected every car leaving campus. For hours, tension gripped the community. Parents called their children frantically, terrified. Professors barricaded doors. By nightfall, police announced they had detained a suspect, a 24-year-old man from Salt Lake City, a name the nation had never heard before, but soon would. And with that name came a disturbing portrait of obsession, anger, and radicalization. The suspect was identified as Ethan James, a former student who had attended Utah Valley University but dropped out 2 years prior. Neighbors described him as quiet, withdrawn, a young man who mostly kept to himself. But online, it was a different story. Police uncovered pages of posts, rants about politics, conspiracy theories, and one name that appeared again and again: Charlie Kirk. In angry late-night posts, Ethan accused Kirk of ruining America, of brainwashing young people, of being, in his words, the mouthpiece of hate. To friends, Ethan had seemed increasingly unstable. Some recalled heated arguments where he blamed Kirk for everything wrong in the country. Others noticed his obsession with firearms, his hours spent at the shooting range. But no one thought he was capable of this. And yet, prosecutors painted a chilling picture. Ethan had purchased the handgun just weeks before the event. He had followed Kirk's tour schedule online. He knew when and where he would appear. The shooting wasn't spontaneous. It was planned, calculated, cold. During interrogation, Ethan said little. He refused to answer questions, demanded a lawyer, and sat stone-faced as detectives pressed him. But when police read aloud Kirk's time of death, witnesses say a faint smile appeared across his lips, a smile that would haunt investigators for weeks to come. The news of Charlie Kirk's death spread like wildfire. and the reactions were as polarized as the man himself. In conservative circles, grief and outrage poured out. Fox News hosts openly wept on air. Republican lawmakers called the killing an act of political terrorism. Donald Trump himself released a statement calling Kirk a patriot, a fighter, and a dear friend. In cities across the U.S., candlelight vigils appeared. Students lit candles on college campuses. Thousands gathered outside Turning Point USA's headquarters in Phoenix, leaving flowers, flags, and handwritten notes. But not everyone mourned. On social media, critics posted messages that were chilling in their coldness. Some mocked his death. Others said bluntly, "Good riddance." The divide was raw, visceral, undeniable. Cable news replayed the moment of the shooting over and over, analyzing it frame by frame. Talk shows debated whether this was the inevitable result of America's toxic political climate. Was it hate? Was it mental illness? Was it both? And behind the noise, one reality cut deeper than all the rest. A 31-year-old man, a son, a husband, a friend was dead. Charlie Kirk's funeral drew thousands. It wasn't just a memorial, it was a political event. Former presidents, governors, senators, and media figures attended. Some spoke of his courage. Others warned of the dangers of silencing political voices through violence. But as his casket was lowered into the ground, questions lingered. Why hadn't security been tighter? How had Ethan James smuggled a gun into a campus event? Were there warning signs authorities missed? Investigations would take months. Committees would argue. Laws would be proposed. But one truth remained. Nothing could bring Charlie back. In death, his voice became louder than ever. His supporters vowed to continue his mission. His critics wrestled with the ethics of celebrating or condemning his work. And America once again was left staring at itself in the mirror. A nation divided. A nation bleeding. A nation asking, when words turn to violence, who bears the blame? Charlie Kirk lived by confrontation. He built a career on debate, on sparring, on fire. But in the end, his life ended not with words, but with a single gunshot in a crowded room. A shot that silenced one of the loudest voices in American politics. A shot that echoed across a fractured nation. And a shot that reminds us whether you